Here we'll talk about strategies for body composition. And when we're talking about that, we mean more of you're not necessarily looking to make really dramatic changes with your body weight, like trying to lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of weight or gain a lot of muscle mass. It's more of you're kind of within the range of what you want to be for body weight, but we maybe want to make some body composition improvements. So maybe improve your body fat percentage by decreasing body fat a little bit, bringing up muscle mass. So these strategies are going to be a little different than somebody who is trying to lose a significant amount of weight or somebody that's really trying to add a lot of muscle mass at once. And so what we'll talk about is some of the workout strategies, nutrition strategies. We'll go over a few other habits that can be helpful, some possible supplements to consider, and then just general expectations of going forward and setting goals. So for workouts, strength training is going to be really important. 2 to 3 times per week is going to put you in a good place. You want to focus on full body movements, compound movements. That's going to be things like deadlifts and squats and lunges and push-ups, pull-ups, rows, chest presses, things like that. When you're coming into bStrong, it's basically the types of things that you're going to be doing in all of the workouts here. And the reason that we want to think about strength training and the importance of it in any kind of routine is to make sure that we're achieving and then maintaining a healthy amount of muscle mass. So we do end up losing muscle as we age naturally if you're not proactive. And so we'll go over a lot of the strategies here on how to be proactive. But if you're under muscled, so a lot of people come in, if they haven't done a lot of strength training before, they may be overweight, they may not be, but almost always they're going to be under muscled. They have less muscle than what they kind of should be. And we don't mean like huge, bulky muscles. We're talking about just an adequate amount to be able to do a lot of daily activities, to feel good, to feel strong, and to kind of give you the appearance that you want to have. And so that's our goal with strength training, and then with some of the nutrition things that we'll talk about shortly, is just being able to achieve and maintain a healthy amount of muscle mass, keep your metabolism in a good place. That also just makes things easier long term to maintain. If you have a decent amount of muscle, you're going to be able to maintain your weight more easily than somebody who has a lot less muscle. And then other activities. So this is kind of dependent on each person. If you have cardio activities that you really like, then go for that. Focus on those. You're much more likely to stick to those types of things than you are if you just absolutely hate doing certain activities. So find a few things that you do like and make sure you add those in pretty consistently to your routine. If there's absolutely nothing that you like, even as simple as just going for some walks, whether it's with a partner, a dog, a friend, or just by yourself, listen to music or podcasts or something like that. If you can develop that into your routine, that's going to give you just a good baseline of activity level. And so that number of 10,000 steps that you've probably heard before, there's nothing magical about it. But if you are getting 10,000 steps, it means that in general, you do move around throughout the day. You're not just sitting in a chair, sitting in a desk for the entire day. Because even if you're getting the strength workouts in, if you're getting no other activity during the week, yes, it's much better than nothing to get the strength workouts in, but you're going to miss a lot of the benefits of just cardiovascular benefits of just moving around. And I don't even mean like intense cardio workouts. I mean, just basic mobility. And so if you do want to add in some of those higher intensity workouts, just don't go overboard with it. If you're doing 2 to 3 times a week of strength and you do maybe 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week of some of this cardio work too, that can be helpful, but don't feel like you have to just go all out and have these 100% effort days. Because if you're doing that, 6 or 7 days out of the week and all of your workouts are really hard, really intense, you can, if you're not recovering very well, which a lot of people who just live normal lives and have jobs and families and kids and things like that, it's pretty hard to put all of your energy into recovery. So if you're doing 6 or 7 days a week of really hard workouts, that can be tough on your body long term and sometimes not very sustainable. So kind of taking a step back, definitely prioritize 2 to 3 times per week of strength training. And then when it comes to the other activity, at least get a baseline of some steps in, some walking, things like that. If you want to layer in some of that more intense cardio work, maybe 1-2 times more per week, that's going to be totally fine. But just kind of be aware of your overall load during the week and don't burn yourself out with things. For nutrition, if you were trying to achieve a significant amount of fat loss, then you'd want to be in a caloric deficit. If you're going for a lot of muscle gain, you're going to be more in that caloric surplus. Here, we're going more for just balance. So one of the biggest things you can do to improve body composition without necessarily having to change your calories around a ton is just making sure you're getting enough protein. So the range that we typically recommend is 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of desired body weight. For somebody that has a lot of weight to lose, that would mean, let's say they're 300 pounds and they're trying to get to 200 pounds, that means the higher end of that range is 200 grams, not 300 grams. So that's what we mean when we say desired body weight. But if you're in the general range of where you want to be with your body weight, then let's keep that range of, 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of your body weight right now. And other strategies with the nutrition, getting more carbohydrates or sorry, not getting more carbohydrates, but just improving the quality of the carbs that you are having. So more complex versus simple. Simple would be things like sugary foods, desserts and pastries and sweets and things like that. That's all simple carbohydrates. Your body burns through it very quickly. Doesn't really provide a lot of nutrition most of the time. It spikes your blood sugar pretty quickly. So just things that you want to limit. You don't need to stay away from them completely, but just don't go overboard with those. And focus more on the complex carbs. So like whole grains and sweet potatoes and potatoes, things like that are going to take a little longer to digest. They're going to come with some more fiber and just going to, in general, keep your energy more consistent throughout the day. Vegetables are going to be super important. I mean, when you're trying to adjust body composition, eating more protein and vegetables and kind of prioritizing those two things in all of your meals is going to be the most powerful thing you do. And it's hard. It can be a really big adjustment for people to start prioritizing those. But if you can just start incorporating more of those into each of your meals, you're going to see better results because they're the types of things that are going to fill you up, but without adding a ton of extra calories. And they also just give you a lot of nutrients too. So your body isn't necessarily craving a lot of other things because you're giving it the nutrition that it needs. Other general food quality things, like I mentioned before with the complex carbs, fiber is going to be really helpful, can help fill you up, keep you full for longer, and just helps with digestion. It's a really important nutrient that I think most people can benefit from adding a little bit more into it, or at least adding the types of foods that have more fiber in. And then quality fat, nuts and seeds and avocados and eggs and things like that, olive oil, those are going to be good sources of fat. Just make sure you're not going too heavy with those, measure out portions, be aware of how much you're having because they are very calorically dense. It's easy to eat too many of them. A handful of nuts versus like 3 or 4 handful of nuts that's a big difference as far as calories go. So just be aware of your portion sizes when you're choosing foods that have a lot of fat in them. Other habits, these are kind of general health habits, but getting enough sleep is really helpful just to help for recovery from workouts. It's very helpful for just kind of resetting your body and making sure you're fresh and motivated. If you get more sleep, you're typically not going to have as many cravings too. It can be helpful for that. Stress management and recovery, always important. And, we talked a little bit about doing too much with your workouts earlier. Just make sure you're giving yourself some rest days here and there. Make sure you're doing some of these other activities that help your body recover and just help you calm down a little bit. If you're going hardcore with your workouts and you're making all these nutrition adjustments and you have a stressful job and your home life is really stressful and you got kids and things like that, then you need to make sure you carve out some time and some days and some space to spend time on these activities to just decompress a little bit and get your nervous system and your whole body just to be able to relax a little bit. So pay attention to that. And then mindset and consistency, just being aware that anytime you're making some of these changes, you're not going to be perfect forever. There's going to be obstacles that come up. Maybe for a couple weeks, everything's going really smoothly. You're getting all your workouts, your nutrition's perfect. And then you get sick or, something happens and you have to go visit your family and spend some time with them or help take care of somebody. That's going to happen. And just know that's something that you're going to have to deal with. And you might not know when or what exactly it's going to be, but something's going to come up, and just kind of have strategies and be happy when things are going really well, but also just know that be ready to adapt when you need to and make changes on the fly when you need to. And sometimes that means going from, really nailing everything to just scaling back. Maybe you're more at like 75% with everything, and that's fine. So just set yourself up for that from the beginning so you're not super freaked out when something comes up, because inevitably it will always come up. Some supplements to consider. So we kind of have our general health supplements. These aren't all ones that you have to take, and always talk to your healthcare provider if especially if you're taking medications, if you have any particular health issues, you want to check these things out. Don't just start taking a bunch of random stuff. But these are some supplements that can be helpful. Multivitamin is helpful for filling in some nutrient deficiencies. Fish oil has some benefits as far as like controlling inflammation in the body, some brain health benefits, things like that. Vitamin D, especially in this part of the country, this part of the world, if you're in the Northwest or in the Northern Hemisphere in the wintertime, It's very common to be low in vitamin D. That's something you could have your doctor test for too, just to see where you're at exactly, to kind of judge how much you should take or if you need to take it at all. Magnesium, a lot of people are deficient in magnesium. That plays a role in a lot of different processes in the body. It can help with sleep, can help with muscle recovery, things like that. So it's something maybe worth looking into. Electrolytes can be really helpful if you're somebody who sweats a lot, if it's warmer time of the year, you're in a warmer environment. And even outside of that, you can be low in electrolytes. So it could be as simple as maybe adding some sea salt to meals to season a little bit, or maybe some supplements with it too. But another thing that could be worth checking out. Pre-workout, that's one of those that I don't think people need to go out of their way to seek it out or add it in if they don't feel like they need it. But if you are a little sluggish with your workouts, or you're doing some morning workouts and you need just a little extra boost of energy, those can be something to look into as well. But again, don't go overboard with that, because you can get you can go like really high with caffeine intake with that, or some just throw a lot of random extra ingredients in there that aren't really necessary. And then goal specific, if you're trying to improve body composition, we talked about how important protein was. And so protein powder, protein shakes, protein bars, things like that can be helpful to get you into that range if you need to. Now, in a perfect world, you wouldn't need those at all. And you could just do it all with real full meals, full food, all that stuff. That's not always realistic for most people. So shakes can be helpful. I always recommend trying a few different kinds, find a flavor that works, see how your stomach feels, see how your body responds to it, because there are a lot of different options out there. But don't settle on one that makes your stomach feel sick, because you're not going to want to use that very often if that's the case. Creatine can be really helpful too. It's helpful for strength training type activities. There's also some research that suggests there's some brain health benefits to it as well. It's I think gaining even a little more popularity. It's been around for a really long time. It's been very heavily researched. Behind caffeine, it's generally considered the most researched supplement out there. And there's not really side effects to it. You don't need to go with like all these fancy formulations of it. Just kind of regular creatine monohydrate is going to be good. But that's definitely something to look into, and has a lot of research behind it too. And then essential amino acids, those can come into play in certain times. If you tend to do morning workouts when you're not eating beforehand, that can be helpful to get some amino acids in your blood. Can help kind of minimize muscle breakdown if you are kind of working out in that fasted state. Or if you're just doing fasting, maybe some intermittent fasting, things like that, then amino acids can be helpful just to minimize the muscle breakdown that you experience, because you're just going longer periods of time without eating. And then expectations, here with these particular goals of just improving body composition, you're not going to see really big dramatic swings, because you're not making big changes in your food intake, right? Maybe the types of food, yes, but your overall calories, we're not trying to make any big swings with that. So don't expect really quick changes. It's not like in 1 month you're going to see a 5% change in body fat percentage. That's very, very dramatic. Think more like 0.5% change. If you can do that in a month, that's really good, because that probably means you're staying somewhere in the same body weight range, but you're probably making some improvements in that muscle to fat ratio. And then don't think so much when we go more like about long-term maintenance. Don't think so much about this one, I need to be at 15%. And if I'm at 15.5, that's too high. Think a little bit more about the ranges. Like, am I in this healthy range? Maybe for you narrow it down even more. These ranges are based off of the in-body ranges. If you're doing DEXA scans, oftentimes their ranges are going to be slightly higher, because they tend to measure a little bit higher body fat than some of the other methods. Women are going to be in that 18 to 28% range, men in that 10 to 20% range. And so maybe for yourself, you give a range where maybe you come in and you're at 15% right now, and you kind of tell yourself, I want to stay in that maybe like 14 to 16 or 14 to 18% range, and that feels good for you. So that way, if you're checking in on it and you see over time that you're kind of creeping up towards the high end of that range, then maybe it's a good time to make some of these adjustments, and maybe like tighten up the nutrition a little bit, or just get back into your normal workout routine. So kind of have a range for yourself. So that way you're not so obsessed with it where it's like, oh, it went up 0.5% in a month. That's not necessarily, there's other factors that play into it. So that's not necessarily something to freak out about. But if you're going month after month and it keeps going up like 0.5% every month for a while, then at some point you're going to want to make some of those changes too. And then as we mentioned earlier, that as you age, you naturally are going to lose muscle mass, but you can be proactive and not actually lose muscle mass. I mean, you can fight this, but if you weren't to do strength training and you weren't having enough protein, you would naturally lose muscle mass over time. But if you are doing those things, you can maintain or even increase muscle mass over that time. And just, I notice it's the 0.5% positive change, just for clarification. That's positive as far as like in the direction you want it to go. Typically that's a lower range. So I didn't want that to be confused with 0.5% up is good. We just mean 0.5% in the direction that you're trying to go is good. And then what to do next, try to find, out of all the things we talked about, find the things that you think are motivating, the things that you feel like are pretty reasonable, and start there. Maybe add 1 or 2 things and just work on that. Maybe it's just getting a little more protein, trying to get up into that range. Maybe it's adding an extra strength workout per week. And then just try that for a couple of weeks and wait till it feels pretty normal. And then maybe think about the next thing. Sleep is a really big one. I mean, that can be like several months long project to improve sleep, but maybe that's one that you take on and you're going to add one thing in there. You're going to try to go to bed 30 minutes earlier. You're going to, turn your phone off 30 minutes before bed or something like that. And if that's a habit you're working on, do that for a couple of weeks until it feels pretty normal, and then add something else in. Just don't try to throw in 5 or 10 different things all at once. It seems fun and it seems motivating at first for about a week or two, until you get burned out, you get distracted, something comes up, and then you just drop all of those things at once and go right back to the beginning. But if you gradually stack things one on top of the other, you're more likely to stick to them. And if you do have a setback, you still have that foundation from the first few habits and you don't fall back too far there. So let us know if you have any questions, but thanks for listening.